In preparation to replacing my alternator with a high output one, I need to upgrade my electrical wiring. I'm going to use a pair of 5-foot long 2-gauge welding cables to build my own Big 3 upgrade kit. I'll put links to all the parts in the video description below. The first cable will run from the alternator up around the back of the engine to the battery positive terminal. I'm going to add another cable from the battery negative terminal to the chassis ground, and from there I'll run the final cable to the engine ground. I'm also installing an inline fuse. I'm going to keep it close to the battery. Your exact location may vary, but I'm going to see if I can mount mine to the heat shield. This one came with a 250 amp fuse, which is way overkill for my current electrical draw, so I'm going to replace it with a 150 amp one. Before starting, let's disconnect the negative terminal. Use a sharp blade to cut the insulation like this so you can peel it off the end. You want enough wires exposed to fit nicely into the 2-gauge by 5/16 inch lug. I'm going to secure the lug using this crimper. I'll also have a link for it in the video description. The numbers on the side show you how far you need to crimp depending on your sized cable. You can use the crimper with a hammer, but I feel like I'll have better control and get better results using a press. With the wires pushed all the way in, position the lug like this, then crimp it. Since I'm using 2-gauge cable, I went down to the 2 marking on the crimping tool. I should have cut just a little less insulation off, but otherwise, this lug is secure and shouldn't come off. I have my filter removed so I can access the screw I used to secure my fuse holder. This setup only works for me since I modified my K&N intake to ram air. I have the power cable attached and run along the back of the engine to the alternator. Now to mark where to cut it. I found tin snips worked well since the cable is so thick. I've crimped the lug on the other end, so now it's time to add some heat shrink tubing. Your ends should look nice and clean like this when done. You want to leave the existing alternator cable in place and add the new cable on top. I ran a zip tie through and around the old cover and cables to keep it secured. I followed the existing wire loom and secured the cable to it. I added another zip tie here to help hold the cable away from this edge to prevent any rubbing. To finish up the power side, I needed to make a short cable from the battery to the inline fuse. Now to slide the fuse terminal cover into place. I needed to cut an opening on the back corner of the battery terminal cover large enough for the new cable. For the battery ground cable, I needed to bend the end of the lug at a 45-degree angle so that it could sit flush against the negative terminal. It should look like this when done. Now the last cable is going to go from the chassis ground around the back of the battery and up to the engine ground. I ended up having to purchase additional 2-gauge by 5/16 inch lugs since I couldn't find a wiring kit that had enough of them. I attached the new cable underneath the existing wires on the block. The OEM chassis ground bolt was long enough to accommodate both cables. And now the rain is picking up, so let me do a quick check to make sure everything looks good and then I'll start the engine. I'm done letting the engine relearn idle and everything sounds good. I hope this helps you out if you're planning on installing a high output alternator or an upgraded stereo system that needs extra power. If you haven't hit subscribe to my channel yet, please do so now, and as always, thank you for watching.